Today we're going to talk about how to avoid making permanent decisions based on temporary situations. Stay tuned. Probably all of us have found ourselves in a situation where we got upset or emotional and fired off an email, hit send, and went, ugh, I really wish I wouldn't have hit send on that. Or found yourself in an argument with someone and said something that you really wish you wouldn't have said. And the challenge that comes along with those moments, the unfortunate consequence that comes along with moments like that, moments that are temporary, conditions that exist in a small sliver of times in our life, is that the things that we do, the decisions we make in those moments can have really enduring and sometimes permanent consequences. So we're kind of making a permanent decision, or at least making a decision with potentially permanent consequences based on how we're feeling in a really small space of time in a really particular context. Most of the time when we do that, we end up regretting it. It has consequences that we didn't think through in the moment, consequences that we certainly didn't want to come out of that moment. And unfortunately for some of us, we catch ourselves in these moments over and over and over again, where there's some small thing that happens, or even a big thing. Let's just say a thing happens that causes kind of an intense upwelling of emotion, and we respond. And that is the challenge, especially, when we're doing that over and over and over again. That can make for a really difficult existence with a lot of unintended and enduring consequences. And part of why this happens is because when we get some kind of intense emotion out of something in the world around us that kind of triggers that experience, what's going on in our brains from a neurochemical and even a hormonal perspective, is that it's kind of an older, kind of more primitive response to the world. And when that happens, the ability of our brains, our ability to inhibit an impulse to respond is compromised. Our ability to think critically, to plan effectively, to take alternate perspectives is compromised at that point. So more often than not, a decision that we make in a temporary moment of emotion is not going to include a good analysis of all the variables in the situation that we should be considering before we offer a response. We're almost always going to make poorer decisions when we're in a heightened state of emotion than if we can give ourselves time for that emotion to come down and for our higher order thinking, critical thinking, perspective taking, planning processes to kick back in, and we'll make a better decision at that point. So when you find yourself in a moment that is triggering an emotional response, that is the time to become aware of that. I'm feeling emotional right now. I need a little bit of space to bring the emotion down and to choose not to respond in the moment. You can always come back. You can always come back later in a more rational, reasoned, more calm state and provide a response. sometimes what you can't do, or most of the time what you can't do, is if you respond quickly and it's not a great response because it's driven from where you are emotionally, you can't always take that back. So what I would recommend is in those moments, again, going back to feeling an intense emotion coming out of a particular situation, whether it's at work or in an interpersonal relationship or whatever it might be, when you're feeling that intense emotion, it's not the time to respond. One of the ways that you can respond in the moment to give yourself the space to get that emotion back in a better place and provide a better response later is just to call it out, to say, you know what, I'm not sure why, but right now I'm feeling pretty intense emotion. I'm getting an emotional reaction to this, and it's probably best for me to not respond. And that's if you're in a kind of a live interpersonal situation. And just say, it's not you, this is something that's going on inside of me. I need a little space. I need to think about this. I need to get myself in a better space, and then let me come back at a later point and talk this through with you. Right now, I'm probably not in the best space to do this. With email, the rule is if you read someone's email and it triggers an intense emotional response, you've got the space, right? You don't have to say anything. You can give yourself the time. Do not respond to that email right then and there. You can write it up, but whatever you do not hit send. And what I almost guarantee will happen each and every time is if you write that email in that moment where you're feeling emotionally reactive, and then you put it in your drafts, and then you come back even a few hours later, if not the next day, and you read that, you're like, whoa, I am glad I did not send that. Let me rewrite that. So remember, we need to take real care and work really hard to not make permanent decisions based on very temporary conditions in our life. Give yourself the space, the time, and that opportunity for the emotions to settle, and for the higher order critical thinking, more rationally responding portions of your mind and your brain to help you craft a more effective, more well thought out, and more reasoned response that'll be more effective for you in the long run. If you found today's content helpful, please take a moment, hit that like button, share it with anyone else in your life that you think might need to hit the pause button and stop making permanent decisions based on temporary conditions. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please, before you go anywhere else, take just a quick moment, reach out and hit that subscribe button before you leave. And until next time, be well.